Hello and welcome to another episode of Ringside Fracas. I'm your host Naeem, and today I'm joined by Jide. Jide, how are you, bro?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
Yeah, good. It's been a okay week of boxing. You know, uh, watching the Chisora fight mainly. I think that was the only thing that was on the weekend that to look forward to. But yeah, it's not been bad. Just getting through the weeks now. I think one thing I did mention when we started the year that the UK boxing scene wasn't really looking that great when it came to the events. Even when we're going to talk about obviously Chisora and Wallin and all the other events that are going to be going on, but getting through the year, some big news coming out all the time when it comes to boxing and the involvement in Turkey. So we've got so much to cover. Let's get straight into it. I mean, uh, on Saturday night, Derek Chisora rolls back the years and drops Otto Wallin twice and beats him over 12 rounds. I think a fight where, on paper, when we previewed it, we were kind of saying it's a weird opponent to choose because Wallin isn't the most gun heavy, trigger happy fighter. He will fight negative, he will move, and he will make it quite tough for Derek Chisora to get in on the inside. But come fight night, and it was the complete opposite. Derek Chisora was doing what he normally does. There's nothing changed about the way he fights. He always fights that way. But Otto Wallin just didn't look like he wanted to be there. And it looked like another repeat of the Anthony Joshua performance mentally, where it looked like he'd rather be anywhere else but that ring.
Yep.
And in fact, it was quite interesting to see Chisora drop him twice. In fact, I thought if the 12th round went on any longer, and Chisora is someone who I don't think has the greatest gas tank, while he has good conditioning and heart, he's not got the greatest gas tank. It looked like if the 12th round went longer, he would have stopped Otto
Yep.
Wallin. So quite of a poor performance from Otto Wallin, but from Derek Chisora, that's what you want, especially for what's billed as your last fight in the UK in Manchester. People, all the people watching. Skepto came out there. Who else was there? Chip came out there. So many people.
Triple Tiny.
Yeah. What a way to kind of end things, beating Otto Wallin, who was, Anthony Joshua's best win in his last recent win
Yeah.
run. So, and he beat him up and he won most of the rounds. I think one of the scorecards was 114, 112, which I don't get.
That was ridiculous.
But yeah, I mean, number 49 out of the way, number 50 next for Derek Chisora. But what was your thoughts on the whole the event and how the fight transpired?
I think it was a good fight. Derek is shot to bits. He is shot, bro.
Mm.
The punches were moving like there was molasses there. It was so slow. However, you can see that Derek has actually gotten better at boxing. I know it's weird to say, and I don't know if you agree, but I feel like as a boxer, he's actually better now. Although he's physically, in my opinion, physically shot. But for example, his cross guard, he's perfected it now. I'm not saying Otto Wallin's the most testing guy that would test the guard, but
Mm.
if you compare Del Boy, how his guard was when he was Tyson Fury 1 versus now, the way he uses the cross guard is so much better. He uses it to set up punches. It's like he's like a Zimbabwe version of Joe Frazier, just but way worse. Just way worse. But bro, like his looping shots were good. Like I feel like the guy that gave the 114, 112 probably was giving Wallin rounds for just throwing patty punches. None of it is effective. But Delbo will throw one or two big haymakers and it will shake Wallin. Do you know what I mean? So I think based on where he's at in his career, it was a good performance. It was a good fight. Like I already said, like there were times he went southpaw. I'm not saying he's Tyson Fury southpaw, but he did it to cut off the ring. That's what I'm trying to say. Like his boxing brain or his boxing ability for me is better now. Although his physical attributes was way better back then, but I'm saying as a boxer, as a thinking fighter, in terms of using what he's actually good at, I think he's better now. But he just doesn't look as good because he's old and slow and whatever. But yeah, I think it was a good fight. It was a good performance by Del Boy. And for his 50th fight, don't fight Joshua. I know that's the money fight, but it will disappoint me more if Joshua takes that. I can see them taking it because why would you mention it? Like it's like when Tyson Fury used to mention random guys like Ngannou. Do you know what I mean? It's like you mention these names because it's probably in the works already. I wouldn't like that fight. He's not gonna get Usyk. Why the hell would Usyk fight him again? And he's not gonna get Dubois. I think if Del Boy wants to sail into the sunset, fight the Joe Joyce, Dylan White winner or loser. Personally, as your 50th fight, especially a Dylan White trilogy. Who wouldn't want to watch that? So yeah, that's what I think of the fight. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think his cross guard's much harder to deal with in the way he's kind of putting his hands up in the air to parry everything. He's a bit smarter in that sense. But, it's just kind of the same things that he does where he goes forward and he's winging the same shots. The overhand's always his shot, his go-to shot. And it's quite, any boxer worth his salt will be able to figure that out and beat it. But Otto Wallin looked really poor. Like that was... That's the type of performance you look at it and you go, you have to question his commitment in the sport. Because he just didn't look like he wanted to be there at all. And if, and he looked the same way against Anthony Joshua, but a lot of people would lap it up to the fact that, Anthony Joshua's back and he was doing seek and destroy, and fair enough. But, to not even get, to get outboxed for most of the rounds against Derek Chisora is not a good thing, and especially when you didn't look like you had the intent after a while to go and win that fight. And again, he didn't have the intent to win the Joshua fight afterwards. And we mentioned that when AJ won. I mentioned that. I remember saying that, Otto Wallin looked really poor mentally. He didn't look good in there. Again, it's the same thing. It seems like, he's happy with the payday that came his way because, he's headlining Manchester and they're definitely paying a lot of money for that new co-op arena. But just poor. But from Derek, that's what you got to do. The thing about Derek Chisora is he's never going to be looked at as a heavyweight great, but he'll be looked at as a UK cult legend.
Facts.
Where what he does and his ability, no other boxer right now can do that. In terms of he can consistently lose at a certain level and still have people tuning into his fights, coming out to Manchester, going to London, going there, chanting his name and having that cult following around him, even though most of his fans know he probably won't win a world title ever in his career, and he might get near to challenging one, but that's the best he can do. He's not that type of fighter, but he's entertaining, he's exciting in terms of his personality is always all over the place. I mean, now he's doing his whole Reform UK support, so that's a bit weird, but that's just the CTE, isn't it? So, the whole cowboy hat with Reform on.
He's so, bro. I laughed at that, man. He's so funny, but anyways.
I mean, Nigel Farage is his best friend, so it's just
It's like, when did that friendship fucking happen? But,
who knows? And then he's randomly gripsing up. Not gripsing up. He's randomly doing saunas and baths with Charlie Parsons, and I feel for Charlie Parsons because something definitely happened there. But he's a proper odd character, but like I said, he's built that cult personality where he can sell tickets. Like, he might not be the biggest social media personality, but he can sell tickets, and people know who Derek Chisora is. And a lot of the boxers nowadays need to take some tips in terms of how to build themselves in that name. I mean, it's insane to think that I remember that I think I was in year 6 or year 7 at the time that him and David Haye glassed each other, and then obviously they had their fight. And that was like national news. Everyone was talking about it. Even if you didn't know boxing, you were talking about David Haye glassing Derek Chisora and then having a fight with him. And then Derek Chisora saying, "I'm gonna shoot David Haye. I'm gonna shoot him." So
I remember that.
People forget he's been around for years at this level in terms of his personality and his profile. And a lot of these new boxers, you got to take some tips from Derek Chisora in terms of how to build yourself, because he's getting certain opportunities not because he's good enough, but because that's what he's worth in terms of his ability, his money. And we all say it, boxing's not about how good you are, it's about what your team can get you. You look at the likes of Cambosos, those guys are getting millions despite not really being that good and losing loads of fights, but it's how you manage yourself and how you promote yourself as well. So I think a lot of people, all of the guys that are watching now, look at how Derek Chisora is ending his career. He's fighting whoever, headlining these arenas, winning the fights as well, and getting money that a lot of people would struggle to get even in the prime of their careers. So, it's good to see from him, but he's just way past it. And I don't want to see him in with the live body. Like Otto Wallin was fine now because He's not a live body in there. But I like you say, I don't want to see him fight Daniel Dubois. I don't want to see him fight Martin Bakoli. I don't want to see him fight Anthony Joshua. I don't want to see him fight these guys. Ngannou, Wilder, maybe those guys who are a bit shot. So he has a good chance of winning those fights. But his brain's been thumped up. All that money won't matter if he can't spend it and use it.
Facts.
Ross says, I think we have a different definition of shot. He's still capable of performing at fringe world level, which was his level basically in his prime. He's there. That's right. I think he's always going to be at that same similar level because of his physicality and how he fights. But
it's like you're saying, like the way he fights and the way he just sticks it on you, he will entertain. But bro, I want my man to look at Derek Chisora 10 years ago, 5 years ago even. We don't have to go that far back. 5 years ago, and look at how he fights now. It is literally night and day. Like, it is so bad. Like, not that he's bad. Like I said, he's effective. And that's credit to him for being effective, still being effective, with that being said. But he's what? How old is he? Like 40, 42, 41? Bro, you don't want... His brain has been frazzled. He's been beaten like 15 times. He's been stopped a few times. Like, I already think he's got CTE personally, but you just don't want to exacerbate it by fighting the likes of Dubois or AJ, or, you know what I mean? And he's not going to get the Usyk fight whatsoever. So if you're going to be around fringe world level, you're going to be around top 10, like fight outside the top 10, yeah, you can laugh at them guys, but them guys are still good. Like, bro, what? Jerome Miller, maybe he's outside the top 10. Who was outside the top 10? I don't know.
I think that was the initial plan for this fight. It wasn't meant to be Wallin. It was meant to be Miller, but I think it was, what's his name, Dimitri Salita, who blocked that fight.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I could definitely take a Miller fight, but I just think Del Boy doesn't have to go down that path. Again, he's his own man. He's a grown man. Does not have to listen to me, and I'm sure he doesn't give a fuck what I've got to say. But as a fan, I would like if he doesn't take certain type of fights, you know?
Yeah. I mean, this was an IBF eliminator, so there's a chance that he could go and fight the winner of Bakole and Ajagba. So, and Ra says, I strongly suspect Frank will maneuver him to take Bakole's place as the IBF mandatory, which makes sense because if you want to build Dubois more as a star, him completely blasting out Derek Chisora in front of however many people in the UK would help.
Yeah, of course, facts.
Like Derek Chisora, big name, people know him, and even Ra says to feed to Triple D should he beat Joseph Parker. That would really do wonders for Dubois' star power if he absolutely clattered him, which he would. And Ross says, how about Wilder as a farewell fight? Yeah, that's a decent fight. The problem with Wilder is no one kind of knows where he's at because he's not really with the scene at the moment. No one knows when his comeback fight is happening. He's kind of just there, and no one kind of knows what's up with him. So I'm not sure about that. Another one could obviously be Ngannou because Ngannou is a big name. UK people know him a lot. So you could sell that fight because, you know, you could easily say, well, Chisora should win that fight, or you could say Ngannou could win that fight. Obviously, it should be Chisora, but you could sell that as well. Or you could do Jarrell Miller. You could revisit that fight. That would be decent because I think styles-wise, it works for both guys. They're both going to come forward and they're both going to trade. So interesting to see, but I agree with you with the sense of I don't want to see him fight Anthony Joshua because I just don't think there's not much to get it. If Anthony Joshua wants to comeback fight, cool. Fight someone that's a bit of a live body and not a 41-year-old who's looking for the last payday of his career.
Yep, facts.
You got battered by Dubois. You got to work your way back up to the top. So
yeah, my sentiments exactly. I wouldn't. I don't want that for him, and I don't want that for Del Boy. Like,
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know how today it got announced that Dylan White is fighting Joe Joyce. I wouldn't be surprised if Anthony Joshua was fighting the winner of that.
Yeah,
wouldn't be bad. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But again, Joe Joyce is someone I don't think should be in the ring. So
yeah.
But let's see what Derek Chisora does, because this was meant to be his last UK fight, and then in the post fight interview, he was like, I want to reverse it and go to London. He wants to end it all in London. So let's see.
He's using that as But no, one thing I'll say for Del though is he's the perfect example of someone that fight everyone, entertain the fans, and no one gives a damn about your record. Like
Hmm.
he's the perfect example for that. He should be seen. Fighters should take an example out of Del because, bro, like his resume is so stacked in terms of the people he's fought.
Yeah.
Like, and he's never been close to a world title, but he's probably made more money than everyone else. And all these guys worried about their O's and all this crap. Like he's the antithesis of that. So that's why, like, I'm always gonna be a fan of Del. Like, he's genuinely been a credit to British boxing, a proper credit to British boxing.
He's also a live demonstration of what CTE does to a human being. So make sure we add that in.
Yeah, fact.
You don't even need scientists to do studies. You can just look at him.
He is completely frazzled. Fam, the stuff he comes out with, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. If you want to, if you're a parent and you don't want your kid to take up boxing, just show them Derek Chisora.
Bro, my kids will never box. I've said it. There's just no way in this earth I'm allowing my children to box. It's just not happening.
Yeah, so but let's see. Chisora's last fight might be in Riyadh, so let's see how much money he can end off with. But speaking of Riyadh, some weird complications and deals and things and whatnot going down. Canelo finally it comes out what's happens, and Canelo's on his way to Riyadh season. I mean, what a kind of saga! It's all very weird. It kind of started out with Canelo Crawford being talked about, and they were talking about September, and it being verbally agreed. Then in the last like week or so, it changed to the fight being off, and Canelo Jake Paul for May being discussed, and apparently things being signed between them in terms of certain agreements and whatnot. And then, um, at the last hour, kind of the 11th hour, when apparently the Jake Paul fight had a date, a venue, and everything, and then at the last hour, Canelo nixed all of that and signed with Riyadh season on a full fight deal where in May he'll fight William Skull for the IBF title and try to become a two-time undisputed super middleweight champion. Then in September he'll fight Crawford in a super fight in America. Hopefully, if he beats Skull, then it'll be a undisputed fight. And then a fight in February 2026. What's it called? In Riyadh, and again in October 2026 in Riyadh again. So basically, Canelo's swan song, or you could argue that that's probably his retirement plan, fighting 3 times in Riyadh and then that Crawford super fight. The way they kind of went about things was a bit weird because Turkey came out saying that he put out misinformation to confuse people and to whatever it was. It was just weird and odd. I just find it weird and odd, that especially because he owns the Ring magazine and we want, proper journalism. Putting out misinformation is the last thing you want to do, especially when you're associated with owning a magazine that's meant to be journalistic. I know that I can just tell that probably pissed off a lot of people and a lot of reporters in the scene because, their credibility comes into question. But the way Canelo handled things, I'm not sure what's going on. Why the Jake Paul fight was even considered is insane. Like, this is, again, I was pissed when they announced that Jake Paul was in the talks because I just thought you can do these exhibition gimme fights like Floyd did. That's fine. Drop all the belts and basically retire at that point. But if you're trying to be an active boxer, you want to keep all the belts. You don't let someone like Jake Paul fight for it. And then this whole kind of move of doing Riyadh season is a bit odd. I think it's a bit odd that he's doing 3 fights in Riyadh, but again, that just signals to me that it's the end of his career and he's just looking for the biggest paydays possible so he can retire with all the money underneath him. But some of the fights are quite underwhelming. I think obviously William Skull is a bit underwhelming. I get he wants to become 2-time undisputed, but William's not that good. I've watched his last fight; it was horrid. Crawford, again, it's not a fight that I'm excited for. I'll watch it. It's going to be big, I know, because the American media machine will really push that fight. And then February and October, I don't know. I'm not sure what they're looking at. I think the plan, a couple names they discussed was Eubank Jr. in February, and Hamza Shiraz was one of them. I don't think that the Hamza Shiraz fight will happen. And then the October after, I don't think there was any plan for that one. So It's all a bit odd. What do you think about all this kind of Canelo now going to Riyadh season, signing that 4-fight deal?
I'm happy. Because you know me, I'm tired of PBC. They just need to be they just need to be done with it. But I agree with you. Like all that, it's happening. It's not happening. What I think happened is, I think it was just Turkey covering for Canelo. I think they were negotiating. And I think Canelo wanted a certain number, which Turkey wasn't willing to meet at that time,
Hmm.
which is why Canelo had the backup of Jake Paul. He was never gonna fight Jake Paul, but just have that in the back of like, well, I'm negotiating with Jake Paul. You know me, my name's Canelo Alvarez. If you don't fight me, I don't give a damn. I'll just do my own thing anyways. And I think that's what Canelo was doing. Again, I don't know. I have no proof of this, but seeing how pissed Jake Paul was, I genuinely think Canelo's team were using him to get a certain number out of Turkey. I truly believe that. Um, and then Turkey was using the Ring magazine to pressure Canelo and say, "Oh, you're ducking. You better take the fight." Do you know what I mean? Canelo has shirked on the fight. He's not a real fighter. You know that shit. I personally think it was a negotiating tactics from both sides. But I never, ever in a million years would believe that Canelo would fight Jake Paul. For no money. I just don't see it. Again, these are boxers. They're prize fighters. It could happen, but I just don't believe Canelo would stoop that low on a personal level. So that's why when I was seeing it all happen, I was disappointed, but a part of me was still hopeful that you know what, these guys are this is just one big negotiating tactic. Again, there's more hope than proof. I have no way of proving that, but I'm glad that's what's actually happened because, bro, there's no way we could have got a Jake Paul fight.
Hmm.
That would have been absolutely unacceptable. And yeah, I'm excited for the fight. I think the Skull fight, a lot of Americans, I see them saying, who the hell's William Skull, which is fair. If he's based out of Germany, a lot of them don't know who he is. But I
It's
think
Scott, William Scott.
Skull, it was his promoter, sorry, not him.
Yeah, he's from Cuba.
Yeah. He's from Cuba. I'm talking about his promoters, not him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they don't really know who he is. But I think this is where boxing is like it's global. He's a good fighter. Give him a chance. Like you're shitting on him and saying he's nobody. Canelo's fighting nobody again, but you just don't know these guys because you're just stuck on America, America, America. Like give these guys a chance, and I'm sure a lot of them would surprise you, like how good they could be. So I think it's a great opportunity for Skull. He has an opportunity to upset the apple cart. Do I think he'll do it? No, but the fact he's got this opportunity to try to do it, I think is great. So I'm looking forward to that fight. I reckon if I was Bud, I would have fought Skull. But I think what they're probably thinking is they don't want to look bad in that fight, which will ruin the Canelo fight appeal.
Hmm.
That's what I think their thinking was. But yeah, if I was them, I would have taken the Skull fight. But regardless, Canelo's fighting Skull. And I'm looking forward to this fight, man.
Fairs. I mean, the one thing I'll say about Skull is I watched his last fight and it was horrid.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
not
yeah.
that
He's a horrible guy. He's a
not that
horrible,
good of a
horrible guy.
boxer, and he's not really going to do much to Canelo. I think if if Canelo fought Pacheco, I would have accepted that better than I would have William
Skull.
Skull. Or
It's
if
because of the
Canelo,
IBF, right? It's the IBS fault.
yeah, it's because he wants, yeah. And if Canelo decided to fight Christian and Billy, that would have been much better than
Yeah,
William Skull.
yeah, I
But
agree.
yeah, I think the thing is just like, for example, I think a controversial take. I think Canelo versus Jake Paul would have been the biggest fight of the year. I think it definitely would have hit 2 million
Oh
pay-per-view
no, no,
numbers.
120%.
Um,
That's without a doubt.
that would have been a huge historic like fight in terms of the magnitude and the size of it. It would have been crap for boxing fans because you don't want to see someone like Jake Paul. Look, we respect what Jake Paul's done in the terms of what he's been doing in his promotion, and also that he's boxing. He's trying to make a lot of money, and he is making a lot of money from boxing. But this whole thing of entertaining this nonsense from Canelo is just nonsense at the end of the day. But Yeah, I think and then moving Canelo out to Riyadh when most of his fan base is in America and Mexico isn't the best option. Like especially when you got a big guy like Canelo, it's the best. The better thing is if you're someone like Turkey, you want him, cool. Then put on Riyadh season cards in those areas because you know Canelo will sell.
Yeah,
like he won't disappoint when it comes to those areas. There he can still sell regardless. So.
yeah.
Ra says only Tank remains as the last bastion of resistance to Turkey. He also says they need to get Hamza undisputed at 160 so they can fight as two others. I doubt Hamza Shiraz is ever going to be considered as a Canelo opponent, not because of anything, but if Hamza Shiraz is what we think he is and he wins against what's his name? He wins against Adames, then I think if he's what we think he is and he kind of is on that upward trajectory, I don't think Canelo takes that, especially if he takes that next year, not this year, because Hamza Shiraz then only gets better and it becomes a harder fight. And I don't think Hamza Shiraz right now beats Canelo. But if it's a fight that gets too hard, Canelo, he wants to see it out with easier fights. Eubank Jr. is a much easier fight than Hamza Shiraz.
Yeah.
Even at 168, Hamza Shiraz is much tougher to fight. So I can't imagine that they do Hamza Shiraz. Ra says, to be fair, we don't know what the fight with Paul would have been. Historic champions regularly fought non-title fight against bums. Yeah, but this would have been like some random catchweight. And knowing Canelo, he would have carried Jake Paul for a bit.
Yeah,
he might even go to a decision.
It would have been bullshit. It would have been bullshit, man. It would have been nonsense.
I wanted Canelo versus Paul happen to demonstrate how the power of the US market dwarfs Saudi state subsidies and makes their involvement doomed to failure. Look, all of this stuff is Ra's opinions. Like, I mean, I'm not the biggest Saudi supporter here, but I'm trying to keep my head on my shoulders. So, yeah. Turkey is a joke, using boxing to make himself a celebrity in the West, funded by Saudi treasury. Again, these are all Ra's views. My head's staying firmly on my shoulders. Yeah,
I generally don't see the issue people have with Turkey. I don't get it. He's not perfect. Nobody in this, like, for example, him trying to work with Dana to repeal the Ali Act, that's nonsense. We could never get behind that. But as a boxing fan, what is your issue? What bad shows has he really given us? Like, obviously, not everything's been bangers, but the fights we complain about consistently that we want, we claim we want, we get. So what else do we want as boxing fans?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm worried about with Turkey is the plans that they're putting in place now, because like you say, the whole boxing league that he wants to make with, because he clearly likes the UFC and he clearly likes the UFC business model, because from a business standpoint, the UFC's model works better for the owner.
Yeah, by far.
Because you can hold more of the money, you can pay whatever you want to your fighters, and you're creating a business in the sense of you're creating a corporation, not benefiting the fighters but benefiting the business. And that will screw over a lot of fighters. And the fact that they actually came out and said in an interview that they're looking at the Ali Act and repealing it should have so many boxing fans and fighters and combat fans and fighters up in arms at the fact that they won't even try to repeal it, because
facts.
That act prevents boxers from getting screwed over as they used to before it got put into place. But knowing the political climate now with Trump and everything in power, I mean, I feel like that's going to happen sooner rather than later. And if boxing becomes monopolized, people don't realize you'll get better fights. True, like UFC, you'll get the better fights, but the sport itself won't be good, because you look at UFC now, the media is a complete joke. No one's allowed to go to the UFC events if they criticize anything about UFC. If they criticize anything about Dana White, his practices and all that, and all the lawsuits and everything that's going on that they've tried to bury when it comes to the thing. No journalist that wants to investigate that stuff will be allowed. And this is what they want. This is what Turkey wants. Unfortunately, he wants that's why he's been buying up loads of channels. That's why he's been buying up loads of they've been buying up loads of channels. That's why I've been buying up parts of the Ring magazine and all that, because they want to. It's also part of controlling the narrative, unfortunately. And I might get shit for this, and we might not get allowed into any events, but that's the truth. I'm not gonna say one thing's bad and one thing's not. I'm going to look at it objectively, and
Yeah.
the only reason you're buying up, the Ring magazine and shares in the media channels like IFL and Boxing King Media and all of that stuff is because you will slightly want to control the narrative, and that's how it goes. It's not a Saudi thing. It's a business thing. If you're a businessman, especially in a sport that has a lot of corruption involved, like boxing, you have to control the narrative, or else you look really bad for it because your business can't go elsewhere. And that's the plan that they're trying to make. Faraz says, "It's for me. It's not boxing. It's personal." if Raz not commenting on our next stream, you know why. It's not us. I'm trying to help him. But put it this way, I tweeted that Carlos Adames was prevented from boarding his flight to Riyadh to hinder his prep against their fighter Hamza, and received a DM telling me to shut up. I wouldn't be surprised if that's true or not. I mean, I don't know anything when it comes to the boxing scene, but we've seen, however many fighters do the worst tactics possible to disrupt the other fighters. So this wouldn't be improbable. It could happen. So
it's very possible.
Yeah. So it's interesting because with this whole Riyadh season thing, like I say, it has its benefits, but it also has its, especially long term, it also has its downsides. And I think right now, as a boxing fan, I'm going to enjoy all the events that are coming, especially February 22 next week, and all the big events that they're planning. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to be happy to see it. But I can also see what's happening behind the scenes, and I can also see the direction that boxing as a sport and a business is following. And I'm not going to like what I'm going to see. I was a big UFC fan for the last couple of years, and then since 2011, because I was a big GSP fan. Who's better than Kamaru Usman? Anyway, but the way the business has been, and because as I'm getting older, I learn more stuff about business because I'm reading more articles and reading more things. You're seeing, I get bored with the UFC. I like the big events, but the coverage is quite poor. The media is a joke. I mean, they're not really letting real journalists in anymore. They're kicking out all the real journalists. They're not, they're doing all their shady stuff with the lawsuits and whatnot, and they're getting away with it because no one's really asking the big questions. I don't want boxing to follow that route, but it will. It just feels like it will.
Yeah, it feels inevitable, to be fair.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. Let's see how everything goes. Just enjoy it as a fan. If you're not going to get involved in boxing, then yeah. I mean, eventually I do want to get this podcast involved in boxing in some way, format. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get kicked out because, look, I'm never going to change this pod in the sense of, I'm going to have to bootlick people to get certain ways. I'm not going to be rude outright. I'm going to say things that aren't true, but I'm going to call things how it is. And if that's more than enough for me not to get access to certain events, fine. That is what it is. Like, we can't do much about it, but we are going to be who we are. We're not going to change that ever again. So
yeah, facts.
So that's interesting. That's a good kind of segue into kind of morality thing. And Ra says, if you have morality, you should hate the zone and Riyadh season. Yeah, like I said, Ra's entitled to his own opinion, but if he ain't turning up to the next pod, you know why. I'm praying for him because the brother's got a good YouTube channel with Punch Out Boxing. Does interviews with boxers, so make sure you check that out. But gosh, if that channel stops uploading, you know why.
It's got the call from Turkey.
Hey,
the boss call.
Calls have been made. And speaking of calls have been made, on the other side of the pond, a call has been made for Keyshawn Davis to finally realize all the couple years of hype since the 2020 Olympics, when he takes on Dennis Berinchyk for his WBO lightweight title. I mean, Keyshawn is someone that everyone's hyped about since the Olympics. Everyone was kind of saying even before his pro debut, this is a kid that will go on to win a world title, and Friday night is the time for him to make true on that word. I'll ask you first, Jide, what's your thoughts on this fight and Keyshawn Davis as well?
I'm a big fan of Keyshawn. As you probably know, I don't know if you know, but I'm a fan. I think he's so talented. again, he came on my radar when I found out it was Tank was ducking him, and then I started going back and watching his fights and seeing, and I like this new crop of young boxers where they're not trying to do that Floyd thing. They're like, it's like they all want the smoke. You get what I mean?
Hmm.
So I like how he's like a boxer puncher. He can be aggressive. I just like the way he fights. He's a big kid as well. I don't see him staying in lightweight for much longer. He's a big kid. In terms of the Berinchyk fight, I see him being too much for him. I think he hits hard. And I see him eventually overwhelming Berinchyk. I think it'll be a very good fight. It'll be a very good fight. And I think I don't think a lot of Americans know Dennis Berinchyk,
Hmm.
so they don't know what he brings to the table. But I think he's an underrated fighter. But I still feel like Keyshawn should do a job on him to show the level that I think Keyshawn's at. He has to do a job on him. So yeah,
Yeah, I've been a fan of Keyshawn since the Olympics, watching the Olympics in COVID times, and
yeah,
um, you could always tell that while he wasn't obviously the best because you had Andy Cruz on the other side of the ring in the finals,
yeah,
uh, you could always tell he had that spite, he had that timing, he had what it took to become a good pro, and then following his career since he started, you could just tell that he had so much about him. He reminded me early on, and he keeps showing it glimpses of an early version of Bud. Um, the spite, the timing, the willingness to stay in the pocket and find his shots and get his counters off well. He wasn't losing any composure. He really wanted to sit in there. He wants to sit in there and punch you up. He's got no
yeah,
other obligation to do anything.
yep,
He's not trying to
yep,
pitter patter. He's not trying to point fight. He's not. He's there. He's going to move. He's going to be smart. He's going to box. But he's there. He's really turned himself into a proper pro boxer. And
yeah,
his last fight with Gustavo Lemos, I was so impressed. Like Gustavo really made it a tough night for Richard Hitchens, who had a great night and beat Liam Paro after that and become world champion at 140. But Keyshawn Davis in his hometown stepped in there and dropped and stopped him in 2 rounds, and he beat the crap out of him.
yep,
Um, and he had that X factor about him in that fight where I was like, you know what, this kid can deliver. Like in the big moments, you're looking for not only if you have the skill, if you have the ability and everything, but also the temperament in the big fights to go and deliver what needs to be done. Like when Crawford fights, for example, he fought Sean Porter round 10. He's like, what? He's up? Cool. Goes after
yeah,
him and
yeah,
puts him down. Like that switch in your head to be able to be clutch. He kind of has that. I've seen that in him. He's got that in him, Keyshawn. So I'm quite excited to see how he does against Berinchyk. Because like you say, Berinchyk a very good, seasoned amateur. I think he won silver at London. So
yeah,
he's been around the block. It took him a while to sort of get to the top stage, but that happens if you're a Ukrainian fighter and your name's not Usyk and Lomachenko, because you don't really get the backing, especially at those, the way he fought. You don't get the backing that they did. So it's longer for you to kind of break into the scene. But once he did, he's always got the best, in my opinion, he's got some of the best ring walks in boxing, because I think there was one where he dressed up as Hannibal Lecter. There was one where like he just does the most when it comes to his ring walks. So it's quite funny. But he kind of broke onto the scene when he signed with Frank Warren, and he fought on, I want to say the Usyk Dubois undercard, and everything is kind of coming through there. And then his fight with Navarrete, I thought it was quite close. I thought he won by just about, and it was a good fight. And I thought, okay, fair enough. He's a world title level fighter. But I agree in the sense of I'm not sold on him being a elite fighter. And I think for Keyshawn, this will be a good fight. But this is one way, if you are the levels, which I think he is, he's going to clear through Berinchyk, and I think he's going to stop Berinchyk.
yeah,
The timing, the sharpness, the speed. Berinchy's good. He knows he knows how to switch the angles. He knows how to come forward. He knows how to use his feet well. But he's not as sharp and fast the way Keyshawn is. And I think Keyshawn, that the athleticism, the athleticism, the timing, the counters, the spite, the composure, especially to go into exchanges and knowing that he's got the faster hands, but he's not going to get carried away, but he's not going to get hit too. And I really think he's going to do a job on
Berinchyk. Yeah,
it just
same.
seems like it. It just seems like he's got that factor about him that we're yet to see in a lot of guys. Even Shakur, for example, elite fighter, but Shakur to me doesn't seem to have that factor the way Keyshawn does. Like Keyshawn looks like he can hurt you.
Yeah, yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what he can do. I'm excited. I'm going to try to stay up and watch that because I want to see. I've been following this kid's career since the start. I think it would be only right for me to stay up and watch his crowning moment, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Uh,
facts.
like
Facts.
even,
I'm really excited. He's like I said, he's part of that crop, and like you said, I enjoy the fact that he has spite.
Hmm,
That's like he wants to hurt you. It's not a let me just style on you. Like that's what Shakur. Shakur would if Shakur's feeling like this is a tough fight, let me just win on points. You know what I
yeah,
mean? But Keyshawn is a nah. I'm trying to hurt you.
yeah.
Like, and that mentality is completely different, and that's the sort of fighters we want in the sport. So yeah, man, I'm a big Keyshawn fan, man.
This is the type of run that they could do, and in my opinion, what I think they should do is they should do Keyshawn. If Keyshawn beats Berinchyk, I think Raymond Murataya is meant to fight Abdullayev for the IBF interim, and I think Lomachenko's probably gonna vacate, so that will get elevated to the proper. You get Keyshawn to unify uh, um, with that and become a unified champion, and I think he beats Murataya or Abdullayev. I think he's more than capable. Then you look at across the pond and you across the street and you go to Tank. Like, look, you've either got Shakur or you've got me, but you got to choose one of us and let's get it on. Let's get this fight going, and it'll be a
Yeah,
fantastic fight. I think a lot of people are underrating. I think right now, obviously, Tank is better than Keyshawn, but I think a lot of
yeah,
people are underrating. If Keyshawn really comes through this year, he's another contender that could be a very good fight for the Tank Davis.
facts.
There's so much for him, man. Especially at super lightweight. You know, Keyshawn's not the smallest guy at lightweight. He could go to super lightweight as well. Um, there's a lot. I think he's someone that there's a lot going for, and they always, compare him with Andy Cruz. But I'll be so honest. Like Andy Cruz is still, going through the careers, and I think fundamentally Andy Cruz is probably a bit better. But as a pro, it's Keyshawn that's been shining recently. So
Yeah, I feel like Andy Cruz is it's just that Cuban stuff. Like people don't understand, bro. The amateurs is different to the pros.
hmm,
The style Andy Cruz fights in, yes, is very effective in the amateurs, but at the pro level, I'm not saying it's not. He's not going to be effective. He's not going to do dirt. He's not going to like hurt people and stuff. I just think the way Keyshawn fights is more pro. It's more geared to the pros than and the way Andy Cruz fights. Personally.
yeah,
And I know they're gonna fight in the future. And listen, I understand why Keyshawn's not been really trying to fight him yet, and Andy Cruz has been having his name in his mouth. I get it. I get it. I feel like they will fight, and I
hmm,
feel like it'll be a lot better than like it won't be the way people think it's gonna go. And
yeah.
Andy Cruz, I just don't see Andy Cruz just beating him up and styling on him. No, I just do not see that.
No, I completely agree, and I think it's just I'm excited to see what it's one of those ones where we're at a point in Keyshawn's career now. This is the acceleration point now. You win this fight, you are gonna go places basically,
Yeah,
and not just places in boxing, but like you might get to certain levels in boxing that we are excited to see. Um,
yeah,
it's gonna be fun. What I love about these top rank cards is they always put great talent on the undercard. Um, so you've got Abdullah Mason making his comeback, not comeback, he's making his return after his war. Where he got dropped twice in the first round and then dropped his opponent and then finished him like a round or two later. Um, Abdullah Mesa coming back against Manuel Jaimes, who is coming off a loss against Rolly Romero. He's been outboxed, but I think it's a good step up for Abdullah Mason because these are the type of fights you need to now look at as a prospect. Is let me take on the names that have taken on the names, and
yeah,
keep building myself. But also learn how to, because he got dropped twice, to tighten up that guard, make sure he's not getting hit because he's a proper killer. He really wants to hit you and hurt you. He's got fast
yeah.
hands. He's really good. If he just tightens up that defense a bit more, he'll be fine. But I can't wait. I can't wait for the return of Abdullah Mason. He's another one who I've been watching for such a while now.
Yeah.
I'm just sold on him, and I think he can definitely be a really good talent at lightweight. It's just now about getting the correct fights in and getting the correct developments.
Bro,
Um,
top rank have the best prospects. Like I'll keep saying it. For me, anyway, the American ones, anyways, they
hmm.
legit have the best ones, bro.
Yeah, yeah. And then obviously on the undercard as well, they've got Jared Anderson making his comeback. What's your thoughts on that?
To be fair, I haven't seen who's fighting yet, so I've not really.
It's some random. I'll tell you now. Because I did research. It's some random Greek guy. He hasn't really fought anyone. He's big. He's stiff. He's not really a big puncher. That in that sense, it should be a routine win for Jared. It's your comeback fight. It's a routine win. To be fair, should be.
Yeah, yeah. It's trying to come back. Nothing wrong with it. What do I expect? Don't really expect much. He's just gonna run through him, and that's
Do you
fine.
think? Do you
Go on.
think? Do you think that Anderson can make a comeback in the sense of he can get back to the top level?
I think so. When you say top level, do I think he can be a threat? Yeah. When I say threat, I'm talking to the likes of like Daniel Dubois. I'm not talking about a threat to fucking Usyk or something. But I think Dubois has a great run, but I think he's a beatable champion. I truly think so. I think he loses if he fights right now. The way he fought um, Martin Bakoli, if he fights a Dubois like that, he gets stopped as well. But I don't think it's the gap is so big that he's not going to do anything in the sport. If you know what I mean, like I think that he can still cause problems to give him the right fights, the right heavyweights. I think it causes problems. So he just needs to rebuild himself. But the problem with him is he's not in boxing for. Again, you don't have to love the game, but I just don't think he's dedicated enough for me to say, you know what, yeah, he's gonna do something. Do you get what I mean? Like, I just he said he wanted to retire at 27. Having that kind of mentality, you can't have that in the heavyweight division. Because he gonna fight. What easy heavyweight title are you gonna get? Because now we have the new generation, a new crop coming up. Jalalov's already coming through, and because he's so old and he's a elite amateur, you never know. In 10 fights, he's probably fighting for a world title.
Not really that old. He's only 30.
Yeah, but okay,
That's not for heavyweight. That's not old.
35. I know everyone says heavyweights age slowly, which they do, but I still think like he should have been pro earlier, personally,
Yeah,
because
no, you're right. He should have been, but I think 30 is not that bad.
yeah, but by the time he hits 35, 36, he's gonna start being on it. That's like physically, not obviously not in terms of
No, but I
taking
think
damage.
someone like Jalalov won't take that long to accelerate.
Yeah, and I hope that, and I've
Yeah.
definitely hope that's the case. Um, but yeah, so he's coming through. We have Moses Atama. We have we have all these guys coming after Dubois. We have Dubois who's already there. Like Jared Anderson can't come with that mentality of I don't really I don't really love the game like that. Like you're just gonna suffer, man. You're ultimately gonna hurt yourself. So that's my worry for him. It's not about his ability, it's about his desire. What does he actually want from it? Because you can't trick you can't trick boxers, bro. You can't trick these guys. They will know you're weak. They will know you're not really, your heart's not really in it, and then they will exploit that. So yeah,
That's the interesting thing. I want to see how he bounces back from this knockout because really and truly, the way he was talking, you know, the punishment he was taking against Bakoli and the way he kept getting up, that's not indicative of a fighter that's just doesn't have the heart for boxing. He looked like he had the heart to keep
yeah,
going and keep trying to take it to Bakoli and whatnot. But we'll see here, it's kind of like, okay, you've been knocked out. Do you have now that fire in you to not want to feel that again and push yourself and keep pushing yourself to become a better fighter and better box and fix your craft and improve it to the point where you want to run that back and prove to people you can beat Bakoli and whatnot. And we'll see how he responds because obviously this fight I'm expecting him to win and probably get a knockout. But the next fight after, what is that? And how are you going to navigate yourself to get back in there? And it's the mentality side of things. How much do you really want it? And we'll see. Because I think he
yeah,
wants it. I think he says one thing, but his actions are different. Like you wouldn't take Bakoli if you didn't want the smoke, if that makes sense.
yeah,
And
I
then
agree.
you wouldn't stand in front of him and then keep getting up and keep trying to fight him if you didn't want it. Because you would just, after the first 1 or 2 knockdowns, you would have just like take the 8 count.
Yeah,
But he's getting in there, even against Charles Martin. He doesn't want it, but then taking the punches and then still trying to push Charles Martin. Like he always his actions dictate otherwise. But obviously in the training, when it comes to his gym, we don't know what he's on. So we'll see in terms of has he made improvements and has he made any strides to become better. But that's a good card to watch out for because, like I said, there's loads of good talent on there to watch for. Xander Zayas as well on that card. I'm wondering kind of what their plan is for Xander in terms of the 154 division, but he's very young. I think he's only still 22. So that's also interesting. Ra says Anderson week 2 and that Saudi payday will keep him in blink for a few years to let his skills erode. He doesn't see threats to the British domination of the heavyweight division other than Bakoli, but he's UK based anyway. That's true. All right. So, and then across the pond back to the UK, we've obviously got Jack Catterall taking on Arnold Barboza Jr. at the Co-op Arena in Manchester. Wow, look at them! Look at Manchester Co-op Arena. They built that new stadium, that new arena. And now they're getting back-to-back big boxing fights, and they're getting another one in Joyce and White. Money pays. I think this is a good fight in terms of you want two top super lightweights to fight each other, and these two are like 1 or 2 fights away from a world title. Really, this is for the WBO interim, so they're 1 fight away from the world title, and this is a good way to get rid of one of these guys in terms of contenders. The only problem is I think stylistically it might not be the most entertaining fight the way these two fight. Jack Catterall is very negative. When he does come forward and throw, he's really good. He's got a great left hand. He's dropped a few people. He's dropped Josh Taylor, he dropped Regis Prograis. He's got a couple knockdowns now in his career, so it shows that he's got decent power. He uses jabs so well. I think he's got one of the best jabs in British boxing. It's so good, disrupts the opponent, makes the space for him to exit. It allows him to establish his range and judge his range, and he's so active with it. But he's just, the one thing he does a lot is he hesitates a lot because he's waiting for the right shot. And sometimes you can lose rounds like that. Arnold Barboza is a decent basic boxer. He gets behind his jab. He'll come forward. He'll throw. He's quite fluid sometimes with his combinations. He tries to use his jab quite a bit, and he's a mover. And he can make this a tough fight for Jack because if Jack is waiting too long and waiting too often, then Barboza can win rounds off of activity. And if he wins enough rounds, he could take the fight away from Jack because Jack is just waiting too much. But I think Barboza keeps his head too still at times. That straight down the pipe is quite hard for him to deal with. And also he struggles with ring generalship. He's someone that doesn't really know how to navigate his way around in the ring and in the clinch and short. So I think that's where Jack will thrive. And I think Jack will win a decision where he looks slow at the start, but as the fight goes, he keeps pushing. He might drop. I think he drops Barboza, and then he wins the fight. What's your thoughts?
I agree with that. Essentially, I'm thinking the exact same way. I think Jack wins this fight. I think it's going to be a tough fight. And I see him winning it. I see it happening the way you described it. To be fair, I can't really. What I do want to see from Jack is I want to see where he's at in terms of this level because he's definitely one of the best 140-pounders. So I just want to see if he's at that point where I believe he can unify the division because the 140 division overnight became one of the best divisions. A lot of the guys are now leaving it, going to welterweight or whatever. So but
he's gonna get Teofimo's title because he's interim. I know Teofimo, they're trying to make him fight Hitchins. Once that fight's done, they're going to move Teofimo up to fight Boots. So if Teofimo wins, of course. So yeah, he could easily become a world. I think he'll become a world champion should he win this fight.
Yeah.
So
go on. I was going to say what's been robbed from him, he'll get it finally.
Yeah, I mean he's robbed of all the titles, so I mean it's not the biggest. I mean, but he's avenged that kind of thing by beating Josh Taylor again. The Prograis fight I was quite frustrated with because he just was waiting too long in that fight, and I think against Prograis, had he gone on the front foot much earlier, he definitely could have done a better job on Prograis than what he was doing early on. But I think Catterall will be a good champion. I think Catterall he's probably our best British boxer right now. I can't imagine anyone else in terms of the British scene. You could argue Nick Ball, but I think in terms of skill, good Jack Catterall is the best British boxer in terms of skills, because a lot of the skills he has, you don't see it in the British scene. The way he's able to make his shots shorter, make his punches much shorter in the range and at range, and getting that left hand off and boxing behind his jab. That type of skill that is not point fighting. He's really looking to fight, but it's good. And I think if he wins a world title, it'll be very good for him. Ra says Catterall beats Tio. He's better off moving up to 147. Try get fights with Ryan and Devin. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think Tio's gonna fight Hitchens. If he wins or loses, because that's a tough fight, then moves up to fight either Ryan, Devin, or Boots or whoever.
Yeah.
Ideally, we get Catterall WBO, Dalton WBC, and the Unify. Yeah, but Dalton's one of those guys where I can bank on Catterall becoming a world champion because he's got skills. Dalton Smith has got skills. Him and Adam Azim, though, have never striked me, and this might shock you today that I'm going against Adam Azim, but him and Adam Azim never striked me as world champion levels. They're guys that I think could win world titles, but they're not like nailed on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Things would have to favor them, and rankings would have to favor them for them to get those titles at this moment. They could prove me wrong by getting better, but yeah, at this moment, no. But that could happen, and that'll be a big fight. You could throw Adam Azim into that mix as well, so that could be a big fight as well.
Yeah, a lot of people I like Adam Azim in terms of his speed. I feel like he needs to work on his defense, but I like his speed, his footwork. I like it. I see potential there. But yeah.
There's nothing that shouts to you that he's a world champion at the moment in terms of his level, but he's a good fighter.
Yeah.
Ra says, why would that shock us? You're not obligated to believe in every Asian fighter. I am. I always will be. Every Asian fighter, I'll back you until I can't. So even if it goes against logic.
Naeem is loyal. You need to understand how my boy was looking when Khan lost to Brook.
That was 3 years ago, mate. Get over it.
I can still see your face, bro. Good times.
It's good. It's good. It's not the fact that Khan lost. It's the fact that Brook won. I hate Brook.
Yeah.
I don't like that guy. And there's reasons I don't like him, but I don't like that guy. Especially all the nonsense he's getting up to now. I'm not going to say anything because I'm not trying to do libel and stuff.
Yeah.
All the stuff he's getting up to now is all weird. But anyway, that's going to be a good event. It's going to be a good fight to watch. Not much on the undercard. It's the repeated theme that I've been saying. Like a lot of these boxing events, the main events, you could put all into one card, and even that still wouldn't really move the needle. Damn, how did he look when Khan got knocked out by Prescott? Good thing I don't remember it because I was a kid. So, I mean, I remember waking up and seeing Khan get knocked out by Danny Garcia, and that pissed me off because I knew Danny Garcia was shit. You could just see when he fought. You could tell You could tell if you make that fight 10 times out of 10, Khan probably wins 7 times.
Yeah.
Danny just had that one or two nights where when he just threw that no-look left hook, he just lands it.
Yeah. That's literally what it was. And Khan was just an idiot because Danny was trying to land it earlier before he landed it. And it's like, Khan knew what this guy was doing and Khan looked like he saw it. But then, I just don't know. He just had these big lapses in concentration in all of his fights. Yeah. Like even the Maidana fight, again, just big lapses of concentration, getting cracked with the big right hand and then having to hold on. And then same thing with Canelo. You could see he's setting up that big overhand right hand, but he just has that lapse of concentration and bang, he's out. Yeah. Like he's not. I don't think he's a chinny guy. I just think he has he's not. And the thing about him is he pause. He doesn't like ride punches well. Pause. No. So it's because he relies too much on his speed. So yeah. Even here, Rara says Khan had no ring IQ, just relied on hand speed. Yeah, I mean he had a decent IQ, but it was just the defense wise, he wasn't really smart about certain aspects. And so that's why I don't think he's chinny, because I think if anyone got cracked with the same shots that he got cracked with and how clean, they're going down and they're going up. It was more of the fact that if you compare Canelo, when he got cracked by hard shots by Triple G, he's riding them. He's expecting them. He's not having these big lapses of concentration. But Khan is he just couldn't see things sometimes. So it is what it is. Yeah.
That's gonna be an interesting weekend. Let's see how that goes. Obviously the Keyshawn fight, I think, is the biggest fight. That's the world title fight. Let's see how he looks in that one, and then obviously Jack Catterall to see if he can bring another world title, because right now we only have 2, which is quite embarrassing. Daniel Dubois and Nick Ball are only world champions, so let's hope Jack Catterall can bring a third at some point. And yeah, it'll be a good weekend. We'll see you in the next one, where we're going to be previewing the big Better BF Bivol 2 card. I mean, that's going to be a flipping long podcast, so make sure you tune in for that one, because we're going to be going through all the fights and detailing them. And hope you enjoy the fights this weekend, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace out.